thumbnail mode. Good. Okay.
All right, welcome everyone on TikTok. Hope you guys are doing well. If you could give Paul, my producer here, a thumbs up that you can hear me and see me all right, that would be really helpful. We don't want to go ahead and get started until we're sure we are beyond any technical difficulties. And for those of you tuning in here through YouTube, welcome. We got a thumbs up from TikTok.
Both.
Okay, and we got a thumbs up here from YouTube as well. Thanks so much. I want to give this a second for a few people to tune in. Tonight, holy cow, Positive, Pink, Kilberry, Sonia, Vanessa, Christina. Good to see you guys. So tonight we're doing one of my free mini classes. We're talking about why am I suffering? I'm going to give you some tools and techniques, new insights that you can use to assist yourself through this process. While we wait for people to log on, I do want to invite you guys to check out Intuitive Tarot class has started. You only missed 1 week. It's an 8-week training. And you guys will be able to learn the traditional method of using the cards as well as the intuitive method of using the cards. Taught by Paul Casey Healing Arts. Brilliant mind, brilliant spirit. Okay, so what Paul is doing when he trains you in the tarot cards is helping you, yes, to understand what the cards mean traditionally using the Rider-Waite deck, but he also wants to help you evolve beyond that into using your own intuition, which opens you up ultimately to mediumship. Here at the Ivy League Psychic Academy, we always want to make sure our students do not get trapped using a tool. Most people out there using tarot cannot leave it. 25 plus years, they cannot figure out how to put it aside and just do mediumship. We want you to always have that as an option. So he works that into the curriculum. If you want to register, ivyleaguepsychicacademy.com. That link is in the bio. That's running Thursday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern. Now, if you guys can't join the group, you have other things going on, you prefer video download, whatever, you could do that as well. So we also have Reiki training coming up for levels 1, 2, as well as your masters. And that is on May 22nd at 3 p.m. Limited seating. It is available through video download anytime also if you don't want to wait. So if you've been debating on whether or not you want to get Reiki attuned, we use the Usui Ryoho training program traditionally, but we also, again, intuitively branch out into some more modern and different methods of energy work. For example, here at the Academy, we include things like psychic surgery. Okay, so you may want to check it out if that sounds like a right fit. Let's see. We also have... let's see, our psychic mediumship course has opened up. Registration for the general public is now open. Seating is limited. The early bird wait list took up about 75-80% of what we have available. So we are going to be cutting off registration early for this one. Go to psychicmediumshipcourse.com for that. And a couple fun little random announcements. I did add 2 new things to my website for those of you that I read. You go to ivyrivera.psychicmedium.com. I added intuitive ability assessments. So that's basically, are you a psychic, a medium, or an empath? If you don't know what you are, but you want to find out, and I'll include a little bit about what you should be doing with it as well. Not just like, yes, this is what you have, but we'll get a little bit more in depth. Those are now up on the website. And I think it's like $25, isn't it? Yeah. So you can like get one for yourself. You can gift it to a friend. What an amazing gift to, help a friend, a family member know what abilities they have going on. And we also added direct spirit messages. Okay, so if you don't necessarily have a question that you want answered, but you would just like to hear what spirit has to say for you right now, you can also do that. And that's a great gift. And I believe those are like $30. Mm-hmm. What a deal. Okay. Lots of fun. If I do say so myself, I think, no, Spirit's amazing. And we've been blessed to be able to do things like this. So I hope you guys enjoy those. Looks like we have a few people tuned in. Yes? I'm going to ask everybody on YouTube to please hit that thumbs up button. Everyone on TikTok, feel free to leave donations. YouTube, we appreciate donations. Those of you here on YouTube at Ask Ivy, if you want to become a member, you can hit that join button for direct spirit messages, your monthly horoscope, additional curriculum, all kinds of things. Check it out. I do want to announce to those of you tuned in here through TikTok halfway through the class, we are going to be switching over here exclusively to YouTube. So you may want to go ahead and just do that now. It's at Ask Ivy. All right, so we're going to go through about half the curriculum and then turn off on TikTok. And I will be finishing up the curriculum and then giving you guys helpful tips and tools that you can use going forward. We good, Paul? All right, very good. So welcome, everyone. I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino Arawak, and I own a school called the Ivy League Psychic Academy, where I train people internationally, online, and everything from psychic mediumship development to Reiki, astrology, tarot, numerology, paranormal work, empathic work. We train children as well as adults, so we hope to see you there for classes. This is one of the free mini classes. I've been doing 1 to 2 per week since the pandemic hit. This is called the Quarantine Series, and if you want to check out a full list of the mini classes, hit the playlist button here on YouTube. Today is Why Am I Suffering? Now, I believe that there are 2 different kinds of suffering out there. I believe that there are people who are going through long-term pain, trials, and tribulation. And we can think of situations in life or even being born into predicaments that create that atmosphere, for us, whether it's being born with a disability, being born with an illness, a condition, being born into an abusive family, being born marginalized and having to struggle with society, or over the course of your life, you may have something terrible happen, like estrangement from your children, or a terrible death that left you a widow. Heaven forbid you lost a child, or there was an accident and it's debilitating. There are a million things that can happen. We have all either been through it and are lugging something with us every day, or we know someone who has, and it carries a lot of, I almost want to say superstition with it, okay, which we're going to break down here in a minute. So there's long-term suffering, and then we have people that are going through a lot of suffering, but they really don't need to be. Okay, they went through an incident, granted, yes, they went through an incident, but they are not applying the tools that we're going to talk about here today. They're not examining the areas we're going to discuss here today, and they're not using it to their advantage and using it for what it is meant for. Okay, so there's a lot of misunderstanding there, and they're stuck. I want to say this, regardless of the category that you fit in, and at different times in our lives, we could be in both, of course. But regardless of which category you fit in, it's absolutely essential that you are an active participant in your healing. It is essential that you understand no one can do it for you. And the things we're going to talk about here today are for you to pick up and apply. It is an opportunity for you to examine whether or not you're using it or you're allowing it to use you. All right. So I think if the universe could say one thing to everybody about the healing process and applying it, it's that you can, it's that you should, and quite frankly, it's that you have to. Because coming to Earth as a human being, part of the universal order of things is that you are here to grow. You are here to learn. You are here to contribute. And so it's never going to end, not even in the afterlife. Okay. So it really is something that we have to do. All right. So let's talk about the fact that most people I see, whether it be clients, students, I see that most people don't understand ultimately what pain is for. They don't understand that going through something difficult is connected to an opportunity for growth and lessons. They feel that pain ultimately leads to their suffering. And once they're suffering, they're trapped. It is some type of punishment like bad juju or bad karma, even from decisions they've made in this life or from a previous life. And we do have some religions, let's be honest, who back that. Okay, there is a fear-mongering essence that has lingered, throughout many religions. And it is all about that punishment and how if you're suffering, you must have done something to deserve it. And then we are surrounded by others in the world who back that. Entire societies built on that fear, that guilt, that suffering, that entrapment. Okay, so you really need to open your eyes to how deep it goes, how much programming is involved, how you have been programmed to believe that your pain or your suffering is somehow a punishment for you. Okay. And it also keeps people in line, people who will not stray from the status quo, right? They are going to have to walk that tight line that they're told they should. They don't want to be in pain. They don't want to be in suffering. They don't want to get punished. So there's that fear element keeping them steady there. So there's also that, and that creates a lot of suffering. Doing things that you shouldn't be, being in relationships that you shouldn't be, taking on an identity that isn't yours. Okay, these are all forms of suffering from programming. We also have to understand that a lot of our suffering is coming from comparison. We don't understand our pain. We don't understand that it's a growth process. So we compare ourselves to others who aren't experiencing it, or so the illusion says. So we have built, right, billion-dollar businesses. Look at social media. It's all about how great I'm doing, how great I look, how great my life is. Don't you want this? Don't you wish you were me? Right? Everyone's a superstar having a great time. None of that is real, or they're not doing it right. That's not what this planet is. That's not what the human experience is. So anyone who's got a free ride like that, good times, noodle salad, is either lying or they are not engaging in the process of life in the way that they should be. So we are all in this together in the same boat. Yes, to different degrees, okay, of pain at different times. But it is not you not being punished. And you shouldn't compare yourself to someone else. Okay, so I do also want to talk about people who want to avoid more pain. So they're suffering and they continue to suffer and they actually adopt it. Like, I'm going to just stay in my suffering because the minute I get happy, I seem to get punched in the face with something else, So they're afraid to let go of it because they don't want to have to experience it again. Let's use the example of getting into a toxic relationship. Okay, and so you don't want to go back out there and start dating again, because if you make yourself vulnerable, if you open up, it could, turn into another heartbreak. There are a million different things that we do. And it's important. I want you guys as homework for the next month or so. These things can take a while to surface sometimes. I want you to be mindful every day about areas in your life where you're coming from a place of fear, not love. You're coming from a place of ego and control, not positivity. Where are these places in your life? Even if it's just a thought that you have, a thought where you slap yourself on the hand, you stop yourself from being happy, you stop yourself from exploring something. Okay, how have you decided to stay in your suffering because you don't want to get back out there and try again out of fear of more pain being created? Okay, I do also want to talk to you guys as we move into number 3 here. I want you guys to post your questions or comments. Paul will be taking those throughout the curriculum here. And if they don't fit, we'll just pull them all together at the end of class and we'll try to get to everything, okay? So we're going to talk about this one last one, and then we are going to switch off here from TikTok and shift everyone over to YouTube at Ask Ivy. All right, so let's talk about the attitude of becoming entitled When people talk about suffering, I love the saying, you can become bitter or you can become better. Okay, what are you going to choose? Well, people who allow themselves to become bitter are feeling entitled, typically, to other people's energy. They become vampires. They drain everyone else around them. They feel that the world owes them something because of their pain, because of their suffering. And I think of people who get onto the videos or the posts that I put out on social media every day, and they'll always say, well, don't you have a link? Well, don't you have something to this? Well, don't you have more information on this? And I'll say, Google it. Pick up your load and go Google it. How do you think I found this information? You know, they're lazy. They're just taking. Now, that is going to create karmic kickback. That is going to strip you from being able to manifest or have your prayers answered. That is going to trigger law of attraction, okay, which is like attracts like. You are going to have more problems. You're perpetuating the suffering by being a victim. Okay, let's go ahead and switch off here on TikTok. And we're going to move into number 4 I want to talk about. Then we're going to talk about solutions and take your questions. Okay, everybody on TikTok, go over to YouTube at Ask Ivy. Otherwise, I will see you Monday for Ask Ivy, where I take your questions.
Link is in Ivy's bio. Nice and quick.
So I know on that note, you guys are all probably like laughing. You're thinking of someone you know who's a complete drain, just a total wet blanket. And I think we can all look at our lives and at some point remember a time when you were doing it. It's often embarrassing to think back on a time when you were that super toxic person because of your pain or your suffering. And it's a great sign that in that, you know, really bad behavior that we can learn that's an area where we need to do some shadow work. Okay. So while it's funny, it's not so funny. Okay. So let's talk about the 4th area here. A lot of people are suffering more than what they need to, or they are not moving through their pain and making it useful because they have adopted it as their identity. They no longer even understand who they are without it. That is the equivalent of, you know, having played with a Ouija board and having some paranormal entity come through and you befriend it and take it home, right? That's the equivalent of some negative toxic energy in the universe wanting to latch onto you and you just befriending it and feeding it and can't get rid of it. It affects not only you, but everyone else around you. You've essentially abandoned yourself and it's become like a possession. So you have allowed for this negativity that was always meant to be used for growth, as a lesson, as an opportunity. You never used your alchemy skills. You never alchemized it from negative to positive. Therefore, you know, you don't know what else to do but accept it as who you are. And that's so sad. A lot of people who chronically whine and they're always a martyr and they're always a victim. And no matter what you say to them, they say, well, easier said than done. No matter what you post, it could be the most positive post in the world. So simple. They're the first ones to get on there with the crying emoji or the easier said than done. Those are the people. Okay. We don't want to be those people who have adopted our pain as a part of our identity. We no longer even have a personality. Okay, not good. All right, we have to aim higher than this. All right, but we have to understand what it's for. Okay, so let's get into that now, and then we'll take questions. Okay. So I think the most important thing to understand, and I stress this a lot with my students, we have to understand that the difficulties that we go through are part of an agreement that we made. Before you come to Earth, you sign a life contract. I do these life contract readings for people where I talk about, yes, your purpose, the work you're here to do, but also pain that you're going to go through, really difficult lessons, dynamic relationships, and times of growth. Now, whenever we look at our life contract and we say, I chose this for some reason, okay, we have to then find out why we chose it. So I think the first most important thing to understand is that these are things that you agreed to. Whether it be you had past lives where you have spillover work you still need to finish, lessons that you didn't learn, healing that still needs to be done, or in this life, you're using this as an opportunity to level up, okay, expand upon your knowledge and your wisdom and your enlightenment to become more powerful and working more for the light, helping others more. Well, you got to walk the walk. You got to go through the fire to be able to do that. And so we want to stop judging it as though someone else made it happen to us, or as though it is that karma, or that bad luck, that bad juju, or a curse. And we want to understand that it's something we actually chose for growth. All right. So the first thing we need to look at when we notice that any of the things I mentioned earlier are really obvious, it's like a trigger, we need to first ask, okay, I accept that. I see that. How can I use it to do some shadow work? What are the roots of this problem? Where did it come from? Where did it start? When did I start behaving this way? When did I start feeling or thinking this way? When did I start denying myself? When did I start cutting myself off from love? Why and when? Go back and do the shadow work. We have free mini classes here and the church series in Roots Revival playlist on shadow work. Number 2, once you've gotten through some of that, you need to pay attention to what the lessons are. Okay, I'm doing the shadow work. I'm dealing with the emotion. I'm getting comfortable being uncomfortable. It's super gross. Can't wait to get out of this phase. But what are the lessons? What was the point? How can I take what I went through and what I'm learning during my shadow work and apply it to my life? This is so important. You have to be honest that your life is like a puzzle and all the pieces are fitting together, not always in the section you want them to, not always as quickly as you want them to, but it's like one piece after another, after another, after another, giving you ultimately a whole picture. And you have to be willing to do the work to get more pieces of the puzzle sent to you. Okay, so what are the lessons? When you get a piece of that puzzle and it's like a horse running through a field, you know, when you can finally see the horse's face or its tail or a whole leg or the sunset or whatever, you know, the mountain behind it, it's like, oh my God, I get it. And that's what life is. It's a series of piecing lessons together, right? Like, what is the ultimate point to any of this? And, you know, sometimes that's a hard reality. Sometimes you realize a lover you spent a lot of time on and you invested in was nothing more than a lesson for you. You know, maybe a job that you took on, maybe a career that you really invested in, you know, and went for your degree in even. It was nothing more than a lesson for you. That's okay. These are invaluable. Okay. So that's number 2. And ultimately, here it is. And this is where I see people fall. Even if people get step number 1 and step number 2, I see very few people go into step number 3. And I believe this is the universal order to pain and suffering and coming out of it ultimately. Step number 3 is giving it to others. What was this ultimately supposed to be? Ultimately, it was supposed to feed the light. Ultimately, it was supposed to assist in evolution of the universe and love. It's supposed to help others to grow. It's supposed to help others on their very difficult, painful journeys full of suffering, to be able to move through it with more wisdom, move through it more effectively, or even, you know, faster sometimes. Maybe it could even be eliminated from them if enough of us were out there talking about our experiences. But most of us don't do that. And I think that's for a couple key reasons. It's embarrassing. We don't ever want to admit out in public that we were hurt, right? You don't ever want to like break down or have an emotional outburst or meltdown in public. Like, it's the most embarrassing thing. And it makes you really vulnerable, because we do live in a very dangerous world out there. Some have it worse than others, but we don't want to be out there feeling vulnerable. So we don't want to share this. We also don't want to look back at it. It's ugly stuff. It was pain. So we think, oh, we'll just go out and talk about, the good things, the things that I have, the materialism, how to grow your business, or I can help you, with this, that, or the other, but it's very shallow. We don't want to go deep. Okay. So we have to get over the fact that we feel vulnerable in doing so. And we have to get over the fact that it's something we consider dark and we don't want to revisit. We have to, again, alchemize it from negative to positive. And you don't really fully understand, and your story is not done, and that chapter has not ended, and the karma has not yet been delivered until you take it and you give it. That's where your healing comes. That's where the real pain relief comes in. That gives you something substantial to hold on to and to work with as you go forward. Do we have any questions or comments?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This one is from Lestrange Steph. How do I project positivity when I feel like I am still grieving or suffering?
Well, you don't have to necessarily fake it. Following these steps that I talked about are going to help you to do it in an authentic way. So we really want to get to the root of the problem and then work through it and then give it out, right? So that's a natural process. The universe is designed to assist you in that process, but not necessarily assist you a ton if you're staying low level. So what you're asking right now is great. How can I give out positivity and go high even when I'm feeling low level? And I think the answer to that is to not worry about it, to not try to be inauthentic, but to do the best that you can. And as long as you're going through these steps, it will get easier and easier. But I would also call in help when you need it. So for example, say you're going to be around a bunch of people. Okay, children especially, or anyone who's really sensitive, or maybe it's work and you really need to bring your A game, whatever it is. If you're going into a situation where you really need to vibrate high and you're just not feeling it energetically and emotionally and mentally, ask for help. This is why you have guides. See my Meet Your Guides class. Call in your ancestors. You are appointed 2 angels, a guardian angel and a protector angel. See my Coffee with Your Angels class. Call in your helpers. They will come in with a supernatural strength and they will give you what you need in that situation. But I think too, sometimes you're supposed to be that way. And whether it's because you're in a process that you're meant to be in right at that time, get comfortable being uncomfortable, or because you're meant to be in that space, maybe to even give it out to others, or your perspective in that situation is supposed to come from that place where you are right now in suffering. It's not bad. So we can't necessarily say that you're coming low. You don't always know that. I think what you're referring to here in your question is not being toxic and spreading it around, but don't always assume that it is.
Okay, we have one from Alex.
Okay.
How do you genuinely come from a place of love when the other person is just refusing to see your view or care what you go through?
Well, this has nothing to do with anybody else. So I would say you need to learn more about boundary setting. I have a free mini class up here called Stay in Your Lane. For those of you that are having fear issues with leveling up in your life or letting go, check out another one called Your Fear of Leveling Up. I think that what Alex is referring to here is like dealing with someone else who's being toxic or doesn't want to accept. It's not your job to get them to accept anything. No one has to love you. No one has to accept. No one has to be on board with you. I think that if you're seeing a pattern with someone else that they're really being negative and what you're doing is positive, and that's taking you down, you need to assess that relationship and you need to see whether or not that's a relationship you're meant to keep. Maybe you set boundaries on it. Maybe you leave it behind. But the issue in most relationships, I find after years and years of reading the public, thousands and thousands of people, is always this. You got one with a growth mindset and one without a growth mindset. And a growth mentality is always going to outgrow the other one. And so you just have to sometimes be like, sorry, Charlie, every time the bus stops, somebody's going to have to get off this thing. That's it. And you get real good at doing it. You get real cutthroat at doing it and keeping your emotion out of it. And if it's someone else, like a child or a student at school, someone you're responsible for dealing with, a coworker you have to train or something like that. If it's somebody like that, you come from a loving place by remembering that your role in that interaction is not about them. It's you being of service to the light. It's removing your ego, which is about control and manipulation and fear. It's coming from a place of love. When I have to show up at work every day with disgruntled people, miserable human beings suffering so much, many days, I don't even want to look at anyone else. I don't want to talk to anyone else. Every day is hard in this field. And I have found that coming from a loving place really has nothing to do with them or their reactions or what they'll give back. It's understanding that I'm here to be of service to the light. And that's where unconditional love can come in with no reciprocity.
This one is, it's a pretty interesting one from Kay Chow.
Okay.
How much do people suffer in their lives because of relationships? Is this because we chose to be in this relationship?
Okay. Well, I would have to look at the exact relationship that you're referring to. I think that, yes, people suffer because they don't leave when they should. Most people don't understand what contracts are. And so I always say at the root of our prosperity as human beings is our relationships. And no one talks about this, but I always notice in readings where somebody is suffering in prosperity in many areas of their life, at the root, at the core, is a toxic relationship, or it's somewhere that they should have set boundaries and they're not because they don't want to rock the boat, or it's a situation where the contract is up. And what we have to understand about, I have a class called Relationships, Boundaries, and Cord Cutting. I have another one called Contracts, Karma, and Past Lives that you might find interesting. So when we look at a contract that we signed on with someone else, they often have expiration dates, and that's okay. That means that you came together with this person to accomplish certain tasks, to work together, or to learn lessons. And when that's over, that's over. And what we can see in those relationships is a lot of suffering. You're no longer a team. You're battling. Maybe you don't want this person to touch you. You can't stand them anymore. It goes sour in a million ways. And this could be with family. This could be with friends. This could be with lovers. This can happen with your coworkers, obviously. What we need to understand is that not every relationship should be forced and converted into something more than what it actually is. We need to see things more honestly, and we need to set better boundaries and leave when we're, supposed to. That's a great question. A ton of loss, a ton of missing prosperity, and even, health deterioration, mental and emotional well-being, suffering comes from relationships. I would say absolutely. That's the winner. Yep. We have another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not even just while they're in the relationship, like,
oh no, after people hold on,
yeah.
People feel obligated to their parents long beyond what they should. People don't understand if a child has, become a stranger, gone wild, or chosen poorly, they feel that like it's their own guilt and responsibility. And people do it with jobs. They'll stay, at jobs beyond what they should because they feel obligated, or they got a degree in that field. We do it in our relationship to others in a million different ways, and it is a ton. Yeah.
We have one here from Trista.
Okay.
If the suffering is stemming from a past life, how do you begin to heal that?
Well, I did a class here on YouTube in the playlist called Past Life Trauma. So start there. It's more than what I can explain here. I think that was like an hour long or 45 minutes long. So it's more than I can cover now. But basically, you're going to have to go through the education. You're going to have to learn to start identifying when either your Akashic record guide who holds all your past life information, or your higher mind is helping you to tap in with the healing that needs to take place. And you will want to then do the ceremony that I talk about in that class of releasing. Another great way, you could book a past life reading with me, no hypnosis required. I'll just tell you who you were and what's going on. You can also look at your life contract. I do that. You could also, with certain Reiki practitioners, like we train everyone here at the Academy to be able to do this, where if we're giving Reiki energy work healing to someone, sometimes there's a block or there's a pocket of really toxic energy, and we can travel back and see if it is connected to past life. And that's usually a lot of irrational fears and repeat systems that you've been born into, again, toxic situations. And so it's pretty obvious that can help too. And then you just have to be willing to do the work. Yeah.
Jill says that when I started recognizing the connection between suffering and growth, I was able to feel grateful for those difficult phases.
That's such a great statement. Having an attitude of gratitude. That's right. And we want to understand too how having an attitude of gratitude helps with manifestation, prayer, law of attraction, all of that. We think, well, I have nothing to be grateful for. I'm in a train wreck. I feel like garbage. I'm a hot mess. There's no way I could possibly, be happy about any of this. But gratitude is really something very different. Finding things, anything, your fingers work, your lungs work. You have a roof over your head. You have a meal to eat today. You have a vehicle. Okay. You have a bus pass. You have a job. You may hate it, but you have a job, which means you have a paycheck, whatever it is, you've been blessed with a child. You have a supportive friend. Some people don't have any friends. It's really hard to find good people. Whatever it is that you have things that you could be grateful for, and to sit and to process, 8 to 10 different things that you are able to show appreciation for, or like Jill's talking about in her situation, show appreciation even to her own self for being willing. Love yourself, being willing. I'm grateful to myself for going through this process, for the things that I'm seeing and learning, how it's piecing together. That there is a bigger universal order to all of this. It's not just wasteland. There's so much that we can be grateful for. And the minute you do that, your inner peace and your happiness does actually increase. And then you get more because law of attraction kicks in.
It's a great way to turn your bitterness into betterness.
Bitterness into betterness. I did not make that one up.
No.
I stole that from a million other places. But yes, for sure.
That's perfect. Yeah. Christina says, I feel I've been suffering a while, but lately it is intense. I seem to wake up and want to change. And as the day goes on, I continue the cycle. Healing feels like agony. How do I get out of that?
It sounds like you're going through waves. And think of it like the birth process, or like, I don't know, PMS, or like what else? A rainstorm, and then the rainbow comes out. Just think of the rumblings of like the thunder, and then the lightning, and then the rain, and then the downpour, and then the rainbow. It's the healing process that I think we don't talk about enough in our society. Nobody wants to look at this. It's that it doesn't in a predictable pattern. It comes in these intrusive ways, and it will all of a sudden, even though you thought you were doing well, or you just got back up from the last hit, it's like this, ocean wave that comes over you. And it just, think of how a wave comes out of the water onto the sand, and any sandcastle that was there is wiped out. You got to go back and rebuild again and again and again and again. And we just have to remember that at some point, the tide does go back out, and we will get a reprieve. But it is a long process, and with the deeper wounds, they can often take a lifetime. So something can lay dormant for months or even years, and then all of a sudden come up, and it's like time to do a little bit more work. But I always like to say spirit is a gentleman, and I think of the universe as being like a kind mother. They're not going to give you everything at once. And so what you have, deal with what's there, stick to these rules, and get yourself the help that you need. If you need outside help, ask for it. If you need help processing, ask for it. Throw some money at the problem if you have to. But stay consistent, and it will get lesser and lesser and lesser. It will also change. Okay, so not every piece of a painful wave that you're going through will stay the same. That will shift into something else, and that can make it feel more tolerable.
We have one from Crystal.
Okay.
It says, I had a full-term stillbirth, and it has taken me until just recently, until I felt like I finally put down the guilt I felt from it. I can almost physically see my growth. How can I give back now?
Well, I think that one of the great things to talk about is how maybe you understand being here. I'm assuming you understand a little bit more about that. I talk about it here all the time, where kids sign a contract. You signed a contract. Your parents signed a contract. We all sign contracts. And your children can want to come through with you, but that doesn't always equate to longevity. It was still a relationship. It was still a bond. It was still and it continues to be a work in progress, even though the little one's on the other side and you're here. The work continues. And I think that can bring people a lot of peace to understand that we're not responsible for that child's contract. Everybody gets one. Everyone is on their own journey. So I think dividing yourself, kind of pulling away from that sense of responsibility, somehow will help a lot of other people. I also think that you being able to show others that you are bouncing back and that you are applying things like what we talked about today to your life and it's actually working, to show people any kind of even little tidbits and tools that could help them through a day, even if at the time they see it or read it or watch your video, they're kind of like, whatever. You don't know if later on they may be able to. And you'll get people who will come by and say, I figured that out too, which gives it even more validity. And you'll get other people who it's going to meet at exactly the right time. The key is to get yourself out there. You're entering into the third part of the process that we talked about earlier. And again, you're not going to get to see really how much you can help and how you should be helping and how powerful it is until you start walking the walk, one foot in front of the other. Take a step out in blind faith and start talking.
This is from David.
Okay.
Said, everything you said in step 3 is basically what's in my life contract from now on into the future. My question is, where is the line between sharing experiences and just airing your dirty laundry?
Well, I guess in understanding what you're trying to do, it sounds like you have a light worker's contract, or it sounds like you came to Earth with a healer's contract. Those are very different. That means that your life pretty much from birth is like a big beating, and that you're here to walk through the fire and then give it out to others constantly. And the key to doing that is, I always say, understand the language. It's not something you could do on your own. If you haven't taken the psychic mediumship course, now would be the time. You have to understand discernment. You have to understand when spirit's communicating with you, when your higher mind or the universe is communicating with you. You need to understand divine timing. You need to learn the language, the lost language of communication. And healers and light workers all need the knowledge of the lost language, or else it's like we're just trying to do it ourselves. And it's like we are missing like the fries and the cookies and the Happy Meal. It's like it just doesn't really operate that way. So learn, get educated. It becomes very, very obvious once you understand who's communicating with you, how and when. You will understand what exactly you're supposed to say and do. We just talked in here about knowing when to pull back. I don't remember if that was at church last week or if that was the last free mini class we did. What was that? But we were discussing, go through the mini classes in the church services here, but we were just discussing how to detect when something was not for you to say, how to detect when something was not for you to do. You're overreaching, you're enabling, you're helping, you're out of your lane, and how to get back in check. I believe it was church last Sunday. So yeah, go to the Roots Revival list to learn a couple instant tips.
Mm-hmm. This one is from Pastel Peach. I just got out of a relationship recently. I felt like he was my twin flame. We're still friends. It's been making me suffer a depressive episode. Is this normal?
Well, it's normal when you've given titles to things that don't exist, like twin flames, for example, are a money-making tool that a lot of people use. It's been very effective, keeping you jumping for that apple, keeping you hanging on to that person, and it's an illusion. Twin flames don't exist. Okay, so first of all, you need to take this thing down off its pedestal. You also need to understand that I don't even think it was soulmate connection. I think it was a karmic contract. So you need to understand the nature of contracts. But we do have, soulmates and karmic contracts have cords. Cords are going to create obsession. And cords are not going to allow you to move on with your life. The suffering is unbearable. And it comes in waves. It also comes at night when you're sleeping. So your dreams may be haunted with this person. And you're going to have to cut, okay, to really get free. And I have a class called Relationships, Boundaries, and Cord Cutting, that can help you. I also wanted to play off the last question. Who was it? Was it David that had asked? Okay, so when David asked, how do I know when I'm supposed to give and when I'm not? This is another great thing that you could do in the moment. Ask your joy guide whether or not you're supposed to. Just stop and pause and say, am I supposed to respond to this? Am I supposed to offer this? And it's good to slow down in your speech, slow down in your activity in life, and just keep, am I supposed to? Am I not supposed to? Am I supposed to? Am I not? It's like a process of yes or no.
We have one from Bernadette. She said, giving a shout out to those who have had the strength and courage to leave a situation that ends their suffering. It's not easy to do. So yay for those who do it anyway. So
true. All right. Claiming it. I'm with you, Bernadette. Yes. Kudos for everyone who has left a situation that was creating suffering. And don't forget to give that wisdom, that encouragement out to others, because sometimes it is easier said than done. Of course it is. And people just get so lost in the forest. They can't see the way out. There's no light at the end of that tunnel. And sometimes they just need to hear it. So it's good to keep reminding people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good.
Oh, and Jill pointed out it was last week's class, Daily Discernment. So I put that in the...
Oh, there you go, David. It wasn't church. It was last week's class, Daily Discernment. All right, Jill, thank you so much. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Our next free mini class is What's Wrong with My Karma? What the heck is this problem, right? 5 steps that you can use to increase your good karma. And that's going to be on May 5th, 8 p.m. Eastern, back here. I do want to also remind you guys, the Psychic Mediumship course registration is going to close here early because we are just about full. So go to psychicmediumshipcourse.com. And if you want to jump in for tarot, you only missed 1 week with Paul Casey Healing Arts, go to ivyleaguepsychicacademy.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.